Hello and welcome to the TV Enthusiast discussion of Hannibal. This is Dinner with Hannibal is what we call our segment. We like to talk about what we ate as well as talk about Hannibal just because, Hannibal's about food.
Very
Today we're
much
going
so.
to be... What was that?
Very much so.
Today we're going to be talking about episode 6 of season 3, Dulce, and then we're also going to be talking a little bit about kind of where we think it's going to be going in the next episode, which seems to be the last episode of the kind of the Hannibal arc that we've had 3 seasons of now. And then it's going to be going into like Red Dragon territory. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. And I just recently went to Comic-Con and went to the NBC party and got to talk with Brian Fuller and Hugh Dancy of Hannibal. And so I have a few things there that I'm going to throw in as well. We're going to talk about. Let's start out first with just kind of what we had for dinner tonight. For me, I didn't have anything special. I just kind of made myself some cheese sandwiches.
I made myself some beef ravioli.
Oh, okay. Human beef ravioli.
Yeah, nothing special. It was Chef Boyardee. He was delicious.
Where he is a tasty man.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's get on to the actual episode discussion. So this episode, again, stunningly shot. Had some beautiful scenes going on in there. Let's kind of go through kind of the main story first, and then we'll kind of talk about I have a few things to talk about with the Verger side and stuff, but just kind of going through the basic stuff, like last episode ended, Jack beat the shit out of Hannibal. Hannibal was limping away. He got away, and in this episode was leaving, just beaten up, limping away. Got back and was being kind of bathed and cared for and stitched up by Bedelia.
Yeah. So Bedelia's taking care of Hannibal. And Bedelia mentions that she's leaving.
Yeah. She's not going to stick around for him being caught and everything that's going on there. So even though she's been feeding herself on everything that Hannibal needs to to eat her, to hopefully she's been seasoning herself for him. He's not going to get his opportunity to savor her and eat her. So they part ways. He basically says he's going to cover her story.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much it for Hannibal and Bedelia as far for now, I guess. We got Bedelia started kind of taking a drug cocktail, basically the same thing that Hannibal was giving to the one FBI agent he had been keeping for years.
Yeah.
Was taking this drug cocktail basically to solidify her alibi that Hannibal was in control the whole time and was manipulating her. While she's kind of on that drug cocktail, she first gets visited by, I didn't put this in the notes, but she first gets visited by Chio.
Yeah, Chio visits her first before she takes her.
Yeah.
Chio kind of walks in on her as she's taking the cocktail.
Yeah.
Yeah. And basically Chio says she wants to cage Hannibal.
Everybody wants to kill Hannibal. She wants to cage him. And we've seen what caging means with her before.
Yeah, exactly. Basically throw in a dungeon and throw away the key.
Yeah, and don't talk to him and live in silence. And
yeah.
So that's kind of her goal. She basically wants to recreate what she had before.
Yeah.
Strange as that is. Then after she leaves, Will and Jack stumble upon Bedelia, who at that point is pretty kind of out of it and enjoying a trip.
Yeah, enjoying a trip. She is deep into her alibi. She's out of it. They're confronting her with all the evidence they have, asking her questions, and she's basically playing her part as somebody who is confused and out of it and doesn't know what's going on because Hannibal drugged her, has her in this state. And so she's running with that.
Mm-hmm. Still declaring that she's basically the cover ID that Hannibal and her took at the beginning of the season.
Yeah. And after Jack and Will leave, she is confronted by the Italian detective.
Everybody's harshing her buzz.
I know, right? I know. Everybody's coming to visit Bedelia this episode.
So while Bedelia's talking to this police guy who's pretty much in Verger's pocket, it seems to be, with the rest of the police. Will ends up finding Hannibal at the museum, I believe, was it?
Yeah.
The same museum where the one Italian detective before Rinaldi had seen him like years ago.
I believe it's the same, yeah.
And they have a little moment, a little quiet conversation in front of the artwork, and they're planning to kind of leave together. And as they're walking out, you notice that Will's got a knife.
He looks like he's
pulling out of his pocket.
Yeah, is there, and you think the first thing you think is she's going to shoot him.
Mm-hmm.
She's got a gun, but she moves the gun, points it at Will, and Will pulls up the knife and she shoots Will in the shoulder, protecting Hannibal.
Yeah.
Which is kind of unexpected because earlier she said she wanted to cage Hannibal. So it was assumed or implied that she was going after Hannibal as well. And that wasn't the case.
Well, it is that she's going after Hannibal, but at the same time she's protective of him. She wants to cage him. She doesn't want him to die.
Right.
So that leads, a scene that we saw in the first trailer of this season, where Hannibal is kind of helping an injured Will, and they kind of leave the scene, and then Hannibal is stitching him up, pulling out, the wound, pulling out the bullet, stitching him up, and then he basically lets Will know that he knows about the knife, and he says, "So much for your forgiveness."
It's so true. Again, so Hannibal drugs Will and captures him.
Ties him to the a chair in front of a dinner table.
You know nothing good is going to come out of this. Hannibal is now going to do something horrible to Will. And you can't fathom it because Will is like the main character of the show. And so you're like, I don't know, but you've seen how far, what Brian Fuller is willing to do in the past. So you're not sitting there thinking, Will save. Like you would, like if it was any other show and it was like the main character in Jeopardy, you would say, oh, well, he's safe. He's the main character. Brian Fuller has already established, no, he's not safe. Hannibal can do whatever he wants. I can do whatever I want to Will. So you're sitting there in like suspense all the time. Oh, what is Hannibal going to do? Oh, I can't believe this. This does not follow the storyline at all. What's going to happen to Red Dragon if Will's dead? And I totally believe Brian Fuller is willing to explore that. Is willing to explore a Will Graham-less Red Dragon. Just for the sake of a better drama in this episode.
But then Jack comes to the rescue.
Yeah.
Except Hannibal's nowhere to be seen. He gets right up to Will's ear, and Will kind of whispers to him, "He's under the table, Jack."
It's a classic slasher movie trope, a classic slasher movie moment, where like the killer has somebody captured, and then the backup or the police come in, they find the captured person, but before they can free him, the killer gets the drop on them, That totally happens here in total classic fashion. But
That's something that Brian Fuller loves to do. He loves to take kind of these scenes from classic kind of horror properties and stuff and kind of weave their influences in. He does that even with the other forms that Hannibal has taken before, Not only is he adapting from the book, but he's taking aspects from some of the movies and implementing them in. We saw it before with the wheelchair scene, which was in Red Dragon. It was Freddie Lowndes
yes,
died, was killed by Dollarhide, and basically sent down a street in a wheelchair on fire. That was when Philip Seymour Hoffman played him. And then we see this one where we find out, of course, that it's not the real Freddie Lowndes, that it's this fake Freddie Lowndes that Will had kind of set up this whole thing to make it look like he killed her.
Like make it look appear that he killed her. And now we're actually getting to, because Hannibal now has Jack captured as Will captured. And now we get to a homage to Hannibal, where the scene where Hannibal
the movie.
yeah, Hannibal the film, where Hannibal Lecter opens Ray Liotta's head and eats his brain, because that's totally what Hannibal is going to do here to Will. Hannibal makes mention, that he's delved into Will's mind figuratively. Now he's going to do it literally.
How stunning was that scene of when you just see the blade start hitting Will's head and the blood running down, the blood sparking and shooting out, and it's like slow motion.
I was freaking out, and like the feeling like there was nobody that was going to rush in and save Will. I was freaking out the whole time. I was like, what the hell is going to happen? What's going on?
And then it cuts to this imagery. You see the sky.
You see the sky, you see like blood, and you see like Hannibal with the blade, and all this imagery happens, and suddenly at the end of it, I don't know what I'm expecting at the end of like all this imagery. I guess I'm expecting Will Graham's head to be cut open. But no, instead, at the end of all the imagery, you get Will Graham and Hannibal hung upside down in a truck full of, used to transport dead pigs, delivered straight to Mason Verger, who greets them at the end of it. And that part confused the hell out of me, because I'm like, what? How did we go from Hannibal cutting Will Graham's head open to them at Mason Verger's?
Yeah. Well, that's actually...
How did we get there?
When I was at the NBC party at Comic-Con, somebody had actually asked, Hugh, actually, first about that scene, and about, he said, was your head cut open because it looked like you were fine when you were there? And he said, well, those bone saws. That was a medical bone saw. And it cuts a very, very thin cut. And Hannibal was cutting around his head, and we didn't see it, but was apparently interrupted at that point while he was still cutting in.
You see at the end when it's revealed there in the truck, they're hanging upside down, you see Will Graham only has a small cut on his forehead, which means Hannibal didn't get very far in.
And so what happened is it was off scene. Like, they were basically making us think, oh, Will's dead. Yeah. And they, and we're seeing this imagery, and we're like, what the fuck is this imagery? Is this supposed to be this kind of idea of like, they're eating Will's brain, and this is what his brain tastes like, or like a sky? And
I thought maybe it was like what Will Graham was like experiencing mentally as his head was being cut open and his brain consumed. Like kind of that's what I thought they were going for at first.
Kind of like in Fight Club, in that scene where Tyler Durden is pouring the lye on his hand, and he's trying to kind of escape, and
Yeah.
he's like seeing, you know, trees and my spirit animal and all stuff. And Tyler's like grabbing his hand and going, no, or not Hannibal, but Tyler Durden and Michael's like, no, stay with this, stick with the pain. The pain is where it's at. It's like that kind of a thing is kind of what you were expecting it to be like.
Right, exactly. I thought it was simple because Hannibal, like, he was totally going to go Ray Liotta on Will. And I thought
He
it was like,
even referenced it. He had said, we're gonna. I can't remember the exact wording he used. It was really cool wording though, where he was saying like, we're gonna finally eat this thing we've been talking about for so long.
He said what he stated it was like really cool. Yeah, I know. It's like we've been dealing. He's like we've been dealing with this figuratively. Now we're gonna deal with it literally.
Yeah, we're gonna literally chew on your mind.
Literally chew on your mind. Yeah. So I thought that was like a cool reference to the films and the way Brian Fuller worked that in there. I thought that was totally awesome.
Great acting on the part of Lawrence Fishburne at that part as well, where he was like, Hannibal, stop. Like you could tell, like, you know, all the kind of toughness that he'd been putting on before, it was like cracking away. He was like, just stop. This is insane. What are you doing, you know?
Right.
And he was like right in front of me, you know? It's like...
After Hannibal was forcing him to watch as he cut open Will Graham's head in an attempt to eat his brain, you know, Lawrence Fishburne was forced to watch that. Thankfully, he didn't get that far because I'm guessing the detectives that were interviewing Bedelia crashed that particular party and captured Hannibal for Mason Burger.
That seems to be the case. We have no idea what happened to Jack because he's not one of he wasn't hanging with Will and Hannibal.
No, but since we can surmise since Will Graham only has a small cut in his forehead, that Hannibal was stopped during that, and thus Jack Crawford is alive and well still because Hannibal hadn't had a chance to do anything to him.
Yeah. Well, unless Verger's people did something to him, but
they have no reason to, I don't think.
Yeah, we didn't see him, so we have no idea.
We have no idea.
So yeah, that's kind of the setup for the next episode where things are. There was kind of another story going alongside this, though.
It's interesting. I thought that they captured Will along with Hannibal, because as far as I know, Verger only wanted Hannibal, not Will, but they captured both of them and delivered both of them to Mason Verger.
Remember, Verger's had some encounters with Will as well.
He has. He has had some encounters with Will as well.
He has some reasons to dislike Will or take issue with Will.
Yes.
So it'll be interesting to see how that kind of plays out. How it's going to work out with the two of them, you know?
Yeah.
In Hannibal, this was Clarice Hannibal.
Oh, really?
This wasn't Will Graham and Hannibal.
No,
it was Clarice and Hannibal that were captured by Verger.
Yeah, because the film Hannibal actually takes place
after Silence of the Lambs.
Yeah, so much further along in the story, so they're kind of getting ahead of themselves with incorporating those elements into this.
Yeah.
Well, Brian Fuller, like he said, he's not afraid to play around with it and mix elements of different films. So this is, this show is like Hannibal Lecter remix. Brian Fuller is not afraid to play with it and do stuff that you don't expect.
And it makes it so much more interesting because there's all these different players.
Yes.
So there was a side story going alongside all this kind of the main plot here that we just talked about. And that had to do with the Vergers before the capture of Hannibal and Will. And so first we have a scene where Mason Verger is talking about rewarding his sister because she's done so well for him in reporting information from Italy.
this goes into creepy incest territory really fast.
Verger wants to have a child with her. She wants to adopt a child. She obviously can't have a child anymore because, Mason took out her uterus.
Yeah, he took out her uterus.
There's a great, what was the line that he said to explain, like, in his defense that that she was waving it around like a weapon or something?
He said she weaponized it.
Yeah.
And was waving it around like a gun.
Weaponized her uterus. If you remember, she was pregnant when she had that scooped out of her, and that was Will Graham's baby.
That was Will Graham's baby. That's what Mason Verger was referring to when he said she weaponized it, meaning she got pregnant with Will Graham's baby and not his baby.
Yeah.
Which
it's like a replacement, like, if they have this heir, a male heir, then they don't need him and she doesn't need him anymore.
Right, exactly. Yeah. That was the big thing with them last season between them.
So, creepy incest territory, definitely. Verger Mason wants to raise a child. He wants to take parenting classes.
Yeah, he wants to take parenting classes.
This is the saddest thing about not having a Hannibal season 4, is that we don't get to see Mason Verger in parenting classes.
Maybe we'll see Mason Verger taking parenting classes and raising his incest baby in a Fuller house.
So, they talk about how she can't conceive a child because of her uterus being gone. And basically Verger hints at, we, find a uterus that's available.
Yes.
That leads to another amazing scene we had this week, which was a kind of surprise lesbian sex scene, kaleidoscopic lesbian sex scene.
Yeah, it was like kind of out of nowhere. It was like literally surprise lesbian sex, and it's like, wow. I mean, I love surprise lesbian sex as much as the
That'll be on your tombstone, Will.
Yeah. He loves surprise lesbian sex.
Here lies Will Roerick. He loves surprise lesbian sex.
But yeah, it was like, I wasn't expecting it, mostly because I did not know Alana Bloom and Margot Verger were lesbians or involved with each other in that fashion.
I think what Fuller's doing there is he's kind of playing into this idea that he's been kind of loosely pushing at in different directions for a while now, which is just kind of like, these people are so damaged and they're so into these head games with each other that, like, real sexuality isn't even a thing anymore.
Right.
So it's all power plays back and forth. It's this weird pansexual politics.
Right. Yeah. It's all power plays at this point.
Yeah, it's all like playing one person against another, and it's just all that's where it all is, and it's just kind of like physical relief and tied to that, I guess. So we got this beautiful kaleidoscopic lesbian sex scene that.
So because the show is on NBC and not HBO, we can't have like a straight up lesbian sex scene with these two women because NBC would throw a fit, the FCC would throw a fit, and fines left and right. So Brian Fuller came up with a brilliant way around this. He decided to show most of the content through kaleidoscopes. Very sexually suggestive kaleidoscopes.
And by making use of kind of tricky imagery, he was able to kind of symbolize things in a very graphic way.
Right, which left no doubt in the viewer's mind as to what was going on or what they were witnessing. It was very much sex.
I mean, there was like a kaleidoscopic part with these legs coming together that basically formed like a Georgia O'Keeffe-esque vagina.
Yeah, yeah.
And then you saw fingers spreading out from it. It was very graphic, and yet at the same time, it was all just kind of trick imagery.
It was all just trick imagery, yeah. It was very graphic trick. I'm surprised it still survived on NBC, even though, because it was so sexually suggestive in such a graphic manner. But apparently Brian Fuller got a letter of congratulations from Standards and Practices, which is ironic.
That's so something I hope he has framed.
Yeah, right? Means they were really impressed with how he was able to manage such graphic content on their network.
They were like, yeah, can't see anything wrong with this.
I know, right?
We're going to put this through, but wow.
And Hannibal always seemed to be like Brian Fuller was always treating the show like it was on HBO anyway. Regardless, it was on NBC, but the stuff they showed and depicted, it always seemed like Brian Fuller just treated it like it was an HBO show and did not care for whatever standards and practices were there, because this always seemed to me to be a type of show that pushed the network, that pushed the envelope constantly of what is acceptable on a network television show.
So let's talk a little bit about where this is going for the rest of the Hannibal arc of Hannibal.
Well, let's see. Mason Verger has Hannibal and Will as of right now. He's probably not going to have Hannibal for long. Hannibal's going to escape Mason Verger. If we're going to follow Red Dragon, that means that soon after Hannibal escapes, somewhere in the kerfluffle of Hannibal escaping Mason Verger, Will also escapes Verger's clutches, captures Hannibal, and finally brings Hannibal to justice by the end of the episode before the Red Dragon arc begins into gear. Mason Verger probably ends up dead during all this.
Yeah. I believe in the books it's supposed to be, spoiler alert, in the books and in the movies, I think, too, it's supposed to be Margot Verger that kills Mason.
Oh, okay.
But you know, I mean, we say spoiler alert, but this is this is Hannibal. This is Brian Fuller's adaptation.
Right.
Elements that go after Silence of the Lambs happening before Red Dragon. You know.
Yeah, really.
This is, you know, he'll do whatever he wants for the story, whatever he thinks is going to work. Right. But yeah, that seems to kind of be, to me, what's going to happen, and it's probably all going to be happening in the course of one episode. This is probably going to be a kind of fun, fast-paced, adventurous episode, rather than the more kind of slow, like real methodical stuff we've had the rest of the season.
Yeah, this is going to be... I predict there's going to be a lot of action in this episode. It's not going to be a slow-paced episode at all. This is one of the big ones for the season.
Yeah, it's going to be big set pieces and big, you know, epic scenes kind of thing, you know. That's kind of what I'm expecting, more so than like really dreamy.
Yeah. Or they could film the whole thing.
Probably not many slow bathing scenes in this episode.
There's going to be a lot of slow bathing scenes. And kaleidoscope lesbian sex scenes. It's going to be one after the other.
So that seems to be where it's going now. Then after that, we're going to be launching into the Red Dragon storyline, which, if it stays true to kind of, you know, the source material, that's going to be, most people probably know Silence of the Lambs more than they do Red Dragon, with Celeste, God, I can't even think of her name.
It's kind of funny because Silence of the Lambs had one movie based on it, while Red Dragon had two movies based on it.
So it's just because that was such a breakout movie, the one that came out.
Silence of the Lambs is the breakout movie, yeah.
And so people are familiar with Clarice visiting Hannibal and then like getting his help and his expertise in tracking down Buffalo Bill and Silence of the Lambs. Well, in Red Dragon, if you've read or watched Red Dragon, then it's a similar premise in that Will Graham is the one that's doing that. He's visiting Hannibal behind bars and talking to him and using his connection with him to help find Francis Dollarhide, the Red Dragon.
Yeah.
So if it stays true to that, then that's kind of where we're going to be going. Will Graham will have captured Hannibal. He'll be in jail, and they'll start their relationship in that way as they're hunting after Francis Dollarhide, who's being played by Richard Armitage in the series.
Hannibal will be captured. Will Graham will probably have the sense of relief that's all over, and then the Red Dragon will begin his reign of terror, and that will draw Will Graham in.
Which means we'll probably see the real death of Freddie Lowndes and some other kind of like big events are in store for us. So,
and then through the Red Dragon, Will Graham will find himself drawn back to Hannibal. They're inextricably linked. He cannot get away from Hannibal, no matter what he does.
And we're going to wonder how this is going to work.
Which is kind of funny what brings back the conversation Hannibal and Will were having in the museum. They're saying they're conjoined,
With those interesting shots where they were crossing their faces and...
Yeah.
But, we'll have to see how much of Red Dragon is covered. I mean, maybe all of it is, maybe not.
We don't know because we don't know what the plan was for the season. Red Dragon arc might have been planned to conclude at, in season 4 before they jumped into something else.
And the likelihood of a season 4 is almost non-existent. Right. Not just from the reports, but I mean, when I was talking to them, they didn't seem to expect it at all.
Just start writing your season 4 fan fiction right now.
There is talk that there might be a movie, though, which would be interesting because it would put them right about at Silence of the Lambs territory again.
If they remade Silence of the Lambs as a movie with this cast, that would be amazing.
With Charlize instead of Clarice, is it right?
Will Graham and Jack. Will, I got sex change. I'm
Willana.
Clarice. Yeah.
Willana Graham. Yeah. Yeah, it would be really cool to see kind of where they would go with that. Of course, it's not going to be as good as a TV show where they're not going to be able to go as slow and deliberate as they can with a TV show with that content. But, I still take it. More Hannibal, I'll take it any day.
I will too.
There was kind of a weird, sad mood. So now I'm going to start kind of talking a little bit about the Comic-Con side. And, when I was talking to Hugh Dancy, less so with Brian Fuller, but when I was talking to Hugh Dancy, I don't know if it's just that he's just a very kind of low-key introverted person, if that's it, or if he was sad, if there was like this real, tangible sadness and just the idea that this is over now, And even though we don't officially know that this is over, there could be a movie. It could still pick up as a series. Of course, if it will pick up as a series, it's not going to happen right away.
It could be an animated series. You don't know.
The children's cartoon.
Yeah.
Like the Beetlejuice cartoon, but...
Yeah, like Beetlejuice, Hannibal Adventures.
Yeah. but he seemed rather kind of sad about it, and he said, this is something he's probably never going to get the chance to do again. Not meaning necessarily just his project, but something like this. Right. And that kind of really shows how unique Hannibal is as a show. That it's just something he just doesn't think he'll ever be able to even do something similar to this again.
Right. Definitely.
So yeah, besides that, I did meet Hugh Dancy and Brian Fuller at Comic-Con. I didn't get a chance to meet Richard Armitage, but he was there. I saw him. He was like 5 feet from me, but I just didn't get a chance to talk to him. I put my focus on Hannibal and or not Hannibal, on Fuller and Dancy. Those are the ones I really needed to talk to. We haven't seen Armitage's portrayal yet, so there isn't a lot I could ask him.
Right, exactly. What are you gonna ask him? I guess you could ask him something like, "How is your performance? How do you think your performance compares to Ray Fiennes and Red Dragon or something?"
Yeah. So when I talked to Hugh Dancy and Brian Fuller, I'd have to say, like I said, Hugh Dancy was very like low key and kind of introspective and soft spoken, and Hannibal, or not Hannibal, why do you keep saying Hannibal? Fuller was like the life of the party.
Brian Fuller is Hannibal in real life.
Yeah. he was the life of the party. He was like smiling and laughing, and like when they showed up, like you could feel the energy of the party change a little. Like it was. They had the cast of, Heroes Reborn and Grimm and all these other shows there, and Jamie Alexander was there. But amongst critics, at least, which is considering, how little viewership the show gets, but amongst the critics in attendance there and stuff, that's who everybody was there to see and talk to, was right. Brian Fuller. So you could see that, they were in their element there. That was all the energy was there. So yeah, it was kind of fun getting a chance to talk to him, and I joked with Fuller. I said that I'm looking forward to both of his new projects, and he kind of gave me a weird look, and I said, "Well, you have American Gods coming up, but then you also have Fuller House on Netflix."
I read that. And he said something to the effect of, if they used my name, everybody would have to die.
Yeah, all the characters have to die horribly if they're using his name.
Yeah.
I still want to see that Fuller House. Of course, I want to see everything done by Fuller. I brought up again this tweet that I had written to him years ago, before Hannibal started, where I had said that my sister and I had both thought it would be amazing if Brian Fuller did an Arabian Nights. Yeah. And he said to me at the party after I brought it up again, he's all, "I'd love an Arabian Nights TV series," and he said it would be a blast to make. It would be so much fun to make, But he was very quick to say after that, "But I'm on American Gods now," Very
trying to imagine what a Brian Fuller Arabian Nights would be like.
If you've seen Pushing Daisies, I think it would be more along those lines than Hannibal.
Okay.
It would be less dark. It would be less dark and more less dark and slow.
I know you could do because of Dead Like Me, he did a great job of making it happy and funny while also being dark and having dark subject matter. Mm-hmm. So I know he can do a wide range of tones with the same material. Dead Like Me still had some dark subject matter and had some dark moments to it, so it felt very much like a Brian Fuller. This Hannibal feels very much like a Brian Fuller creation. I was just trying to think of Arabian Nights. It doesn't have that. It doesn't have a darkness to it.
Oh yeah, it does. There's slavery and murder and plots and all sorts of stuff going on in Arabian Nights. Magic and yeah, it's like I said, I think it would be much more along the lines of Pushing Daisies. Anybody who's seen Pushing Daisies would kind of get kind of where I'm coming from. Pushing Daisies looked like a early Tim Burton film or something, you know, and the characters talked very fast. Like they'd be like, I don't know, I'm going to blah, blah, blah. It was like the opposite of Hannibal as far as like pacing and stuff.
Before Hannibal, Brian Fuller did do that Monsters pilot for NBC. Like
yeah.
He was going to do the Monsters. I haven't seen that pilot, but I'm interested in seeing that.
It's good. It's not as good as Hannibal, but I remember that came out before Hannibal started and before like anything had really come out for Hannibal yet.
Yeah.
All I kind of knew about Hannibal was that the guy from the one James Bond movie was playing Hannibal. That's all I knew about that at that point. And I remember watching the pilot and being really upset that it wasn't picked up because I was like, God, it's so good. It's so interesting. And it had what's his name? And I can't think he's in Hannibal too. Eddie Izzard.
Yeah, Eddie Izzard was.
And he was great in it, and it was really dark in this kind of like funny way. And I was really disappointed that it wasn't picked up. But then I saw Hannibal, and I was like, okay, screw that Monsters thing.
Monsters died, so we got Hannibal instead. So I'm grateful that died.
Yeah.
Because I'd rather have Hannibal, regardless of how awesome the Monsters would have been with Brian Fuller. So anything with Brian Fuller on it would have been awesome, you know.
Yeah. American Gods is going to be awesome, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, definitely. What's that on? That's on HBO, right?
No, it's going to be on Stars, I believe.
Oh, stuff.
It was in development at HBO.
That's right. Now I have to subscribe to Stars because they're going to have American Gods and they're going to have Ash vs. Evil Dead.
Yeah, Ash vs. Evil Dead is on Halloween.
Yeah, it's like Stars. Why are you making me want to subscribe to you?
Hey, and they had Spartacus back in the day.
Yeah, they had Spartacus back in the day too, which so that was worth the reason for subscribing to Stars. I did not subscribe to Stars for Hannibal, Spartacus, because at the time when that premiered, Stars also made the mistake of having their shows run on Netflix as well. And so I watched the first two seasons of Spartacus on Netflix. And I think after Gods of the Arena, that's when Stars came to their senses and said, wait, we shouldn't have our content on Netflix. We should have our content for ourselves. And so they stopped putting Spartacus on Netflix once Gods of the Arena went off the air, was done.
Yeah.
Like, darn it!
Yeah. And, that brings us back to what we talked about last week with, it's sad that, Hannibal didn't get the Netflix bump because it was an Amazon exclusive.
Yeah.
And that, in the end, that really hurt Hannibal because Hannibal is the kind of show that people would have watched out of curiosity because they would have checked it and said, "Oh, I'll give this a shot."
I think they also killed Hannibal too because I think Netflix would have picked up the fourth season if they had the streaming rights. If Netflix was streaming the other seasons, I think they would finance the season 4. I know they got enough requests from people to do it, but they didn't have those rights, so they weren't interested. I think that's what killed Hannibal ultimately.
Yep, Amazon killed Hannibal.
Yep.
Hashtag Amazon killed Hannibal. Start tweeting, folks.
Now Amazon's continuing to be horrible. Now they have the exclusive rights to the Palutena amiibo in North America.
They're playing the amiibo exclusivity game.
Yeah, it's going to be online exclusive now through Amazon. It's like, really? Stop this.
I'll kind of end us off there. If you want to read my what I was able to talk to Brian Fuller and Hugh Dancy about at the NBC Comic-Con party, that is on our site at TVEnthusiast.com. if you want to kind of read our other Comic-Con coverage, it's still kind of rolling out. It's a lot to go over. And so we still have some stuff rolling out. We have stuff up right now for the Game of Thrones panel. Kat just got up the Marvel panel stuff. We got up stuff for Man in the High Castle, the 2 Walking Dead series, and there's going to be more coming out. So we still have the Person of Interest panel I'm going to start working on, and
I still got to put up Ash versus Evil Dead, which I took.
By the way, amazing trailer.
That trailer is so amazing. Oh my god. That sold me right there, because that's classic Evil Dead all the way. They nailed it.
Yeah.
I think if there was any reservations about them revisiting this after so long, if Bruce Campbell was too old to play Ash or whatever, which, by the way, they totally play up his age in this, so they're not shying away from it. The fact that Bruce Campbell is old, that is a running gag, and I love them for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's great. So yeah, I'm gonna have to arrange something with some friends where we'll do a Evil Dead marathon on Halloween and then go right into Ash versus Evil Dead.
Right. I'm gonna have to subscribe to Stars for the duration of whenever this airs, from October 31st till the 10th episode happens. And then end my subscription, unless they start airing American Gods around the same time, then I'll keep it around for that. I think
it's going to be ready by then. One of the things when I talked to Hugh Dancy is I said, I asked him, I said, Brian Fuller has a tendency to reuse his actors, so who are you going to play on American Gods?
Yeah.
And he kind of laughed and he said, I don't think he's anywhere near that point. He said, but he was really excited at the idea of working with Brian Fuller again. So, I'm hoping we see a bunch of Brian Fuller regulars pop up in American Gods.
Definitely.
Maybe Mads will pop up. Maybe.
Give me a moment.
What do you have, ready?
Yeah. Hey, hold up. Give me a moment. I gotta talk.
I'll vamp for a bit.
Okay, sure thing.
So yeah, I'd like to see more of Brian Fuller's kind of regular crew showing up in American Gods. Lee Pace, he's somebody that I was kind of hoping we could see in Hannibal, but we didn't get a chance to. He was in, and he's been doing a bunch now. He's got his own show on AMC, *Halt and Catch Fire*, and he was in *Guardians of the Galaxy*. Was in the Hobbit movies, so he's just coming off of having done a lot of stuff. So he might be in the perfect place to be cast for a new Brian Fuller series with American Gods. Yeah, any of these people would be great to see again. Fuller likes to reuse his cast, same way Whedon does, and a lot of other kind of prolific showrunners will do that. They'll reuse people again and again just because they like working with them. So kind of that's what I am hoping for with American Gods. I have nothing else to talk about, and Will is gone. So I think I'm just going to kind of end this by myself. If you want to read the articles that Will and I and Kat have written on TV Enthusiast about Comic-Con, you can check those out on TVEnthusiast.com. Yeah, check out more of our Hannibal videos on our YouTube channel, or they'll also be posted on the website. That's pretty much it, I guess. We're going to do a podcast this week. We'll probably be talking about Comic-Con, I imagine. There was a lot of information that going to go through there. And that will kind of accompany our article. So check those out again, TVEnthusiast.com. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Bye.